I think most men, like women just tend to abuse men when they know that they're their only source of sex. And that's where the problem comes in.
Well, what do you mean?
Like women just have a tendency to not, like, I don't know. I see so many men where they're married and the wife knows that he doesn't cheat.
Yeah.
And she just does not appreciate his loyalty. And I see women where they think that the husband either could cheat or would cheat, and they just tend to treat him better.
Yeah, tend to behave better.
Yeah. And I think that's what I was saying, where as much as you don't like it,
But
I can see why.
Yeah, but can there be that luminous implicit threat without it ever even being stated? Like, I think there can be. And I think that those guys, a lot of those guys who can do that, they don't even bother saying, what do they need to say it for? It's well known that they can just do it.
You can't tell her.
Yeah, you don't need to tell her, right? It's not it's not important. So how's that? But how's that a prescription? There's such a small select few guys who can do that, who have.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
I think it's more common than you'd think. I met this guy the other day. He was like 5'7", overweight. He was showing me his rotation. It was like 5, 22, 23-year-old women.
Was he rich?
No, he was just a good talker. He was just easy to talk to. So I don't know if it's like, from what I've seen, the PUAs, I don't think they're always the most attractive, like, or rich guys. Like, sometimes they're just charming.
But they're also con artists, a lot of them. They're conning, right? Like, they make that shit up. Like, that guy John Anthony Lifestyle, total fucking con artist, just made it all up. And I've got an 8,000 body. He's like, shut up, dude. And then the guy tells me, he's like, I've never met a pickup artist in the world who hasn't done a tranny one or two. And I'm like,
that is disgusting.
I'm like, what, dude? What? He's like, yeah, I've never met one who hasn't. And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure most of them don't. So the thing is like, a lot of those guys are full of shit about their belt mark.
I've gone to events. Like, I've seen them take the women home. And a lot of times it's really not, it's not always the best looking guys. They're just charming. Like,
I remain skeptical in this regard. That
I mean, it's fine. Like, one of the PUAs I met in like Vegas, I mean, he was not attractive at all. I mean, some are, right? Like, a good amount are, but there's enough that aren't good looking that, like, you would, I'm surprised you would be surprised just from what I've seen.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that there's going to be men who are exceptions to these rules. You know what I mean? But I don't think for the most part, it's available to most men to just be able to go sleep with whatever type of woman they want.
I know. It's just, the challenge is there's just no incentive for men to be loyal today. Like, what do they get out of it?
Well, family. The family.
We're having like one kid each.
That's
women
true.
Aren't really having kids.
That's true. But again,
and like, there's no incentive. Like, the wives cheat all the time.
Yeah, but there's also wives that don't cheat at all. So the key is this: it's a matter of what.
But you can't verify that. You
don't think every single wife cheats, do you?
I don't think every single wife cheats, but like, my point is, if she does, there's a lot of avenues where he wouldn't even know.
There's a lot of avenues the other way too. I agree. Right. But I guess the point is like, it is true if we average all of the children. Yes, it averages out to, less than 2 per woman. That's true. But that doesn't mean women are only having one kid. It just means that fewer women are having multiple kids and other women are having 0 kids. So it's like, yeah, there's still men who I want to see them have a family, have multiple children, and have a loyal wife. And yeah, I still think that's very possible.
It's like possible, but I don't know. I just, talking to young guys, I think a lot of them don't really see that as happening for them.
Well, I think a lot of times they're
like, every trend is predicting it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse.
That's true. Yeah, and I agree that it'll get worse.
Like, yeah. And so it's like, they could hope for that, but that's not a strategy,
Well, it is a strategy though, when you start looking for what virtues are. Once men reallocate their idea of feminine virtue or female virtue, what I've noticed is that I get contacted by thousands of men all over the world. Like, once I reoriented for what I considered feminine virtues to be, I started being very much more successful towards women who had held those virtues.
Yeah, but it's for now, right? I mean, you don't know how it's going to play out in 10 years and 20.
But
like,
a
lot of women are virtuous for a period of time.
Yeah.
You just know it's tough. I think interviewing the men that were divorced kind of black-pilled me because I would just see women that in every, like, on paper were better than me in every way. They married younger. They were like more religious, you know, and I'm like, you know, they married at 20 or whatever, Orthodox, Catholic, whatever it is. Sure. Right. And they did like terrible things, like awful things. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, there's
there's also a heavy societal influence telling them that it's perfectly acceptable for them to do those things.
Yeah.
We had a society not very long ago we can look to where the incentives were the opposite. Where if you did those things, there was very much social punishments which would come with them. You know, single motherhood was you were considered a pariah.
Right.
You know, things like that. That's no joke. Social enforcement works. If you think that we could not propagandize from top down again for social enforcement like we used to, I very much disagree. Every single war, every single thing that people believe right now all comes from top-down propaganda. And it's like, you could do the same thing when it came to the dynamics of family and relationship. But women would have to do social enforcement towards pariahs like they used to.
Yeah, I don't think it would work.
Don't think so?
No.
You know, there's countries that it does work and is working.
How is it working?
Eastern Bloc nations. They've been promoting not only birth rates through tax incentives, but also the family unit from the top down. Younger men are reporting much happier levels when it comes to the marriages they're having with younger women. And women are acting in a more virtuous way less single moms. There's a lot of good stuff coming out of that.
Yeah, and maybe, like, you could argue that, but just, I don't think that the women on whatever are really going to change what they're doing, right?
Well, not all the women, first of all.
Like, I don't, you know.
Not all the women on whatever are bad, right? But there is, I agree.
Yeah, like.
There's a case selection of many who are, right? But a lot of them, there's actually a good amount of women who've gone through whatever who are kind of based and kind of with it and understand that there's serious and significant problems going on. You know what I mean? But there's just also the ones who you don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole and who are fucking delusional and everything else. And they come from all walks of life. I don't think that it's unfixable, though. Like, you have a more black-pilled kind of idea than I do, where you're just like, this is unfixable, let it all burn to the ground. I don't think so, though.
Well, I just don't think we have as much as an impact as you might think. Like, I don't think commentators can change trends.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, so, like...
Well, no, hang on. Let me caveat that. Yeah. Some can, but we ain't going to. Like, some can. At like the highest echelons, I think some commentators are able to kind of shift. I've seen memes change paradigms. I've seen a single meme change the way people view a problem. So I mean, I know that does work. But when you're talking about changing the entire social trend of a country which has been indoctrinated with feminism and communism for 100 years and has been indoctrinated with ideology, which is around women's liberation. We're all born and bred and raised in it. Yeah, that's going to take a while. That's not a fast process. But here's my question to you, though. Like, if we're under replacement rate, aren't they all going to die out anyway?
Yeah, but there's no guarantee. Like, I've seen very Christian parents give birth to liberal kids.
Yeah, it happens, but it's less likely.
When it comes to the women, I don't really see a difference. I understand.
If we look at the body count between kids who are raised in a Christian household and the kids who are not, it is not even. It's not even close.
Who has more incentive to lie?
Yeah, but
who has more incentive to lie? Like, you know, I don't really trust any. I don't trust any study that says like women said they do this.
Yeah, but,
like, come on.
But in the social paradigm, they both have the incentive to lie.
No, because liberal women
are still judged for being sluts, even if they're liberals.
Right, but they're much more open. They'll do it on camera, right?
So will conservative women.
I mean,
they'll do it on camera too. So
no, they'll just switch.
Yeah, they they do it on camera too. I think they're both would have the same incentive there because the idea of you being the social pariah because you have a high body count affects them both.
But conservative women find the workarounds, so they do it from the back door. They'll blow, and they won't count it as a body.
Yeah, progressive women do the same shit. I've questioned both ends of that ideology, on both sides. Like, progressive women also do not want to give you their body count. Progressive women also do not want you to know, X, Y, Z. Same as the conservatives. That social pariah aspect still very much there, and here's why: those progressive women, they still want conservative guys. They want Chad conservative guys.
I would just, from my experience, balance of probabilities, the conservative women lie more because there's more incentive to.
Yeah.
I would say they're more dishonest, where the liberal women will say, "Yup, I'm a whore, slut march," and the conservative women put on a dress and say they're not, but they, blow half of conservative media.
I mean, that happens. I just think that they both have an incentive to not tell the truth about the body count.
But I don't.
And by the way, you can adjust for that in studies too. You can actually make adjustments for that by asking questions in different ways. And then if you have different sorts of answers, you can make comparisons on that and go, well, wait, so one still has to be more truthful than the other.
Yeah, I just wouldn't take any study on body count seriously.
Why not?
Like, if anything, because women lie about it. So why am I going to take their word for anything?
Yeah, but I mean,
like,
when you're looking at trends,
what I would prefer is age of first marriage, number of kids, I think is better.
Christians have that better too.
Yeah, a little bit, but Gen Z, it's really not that different. Like, if you include boomer women and Gen X, but if you Gen Z, not really.
Yeah, but what comes after Gen Z is Gen Alpha. And that might be the most based ever generation that has ever lived. We don't know yet.
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
I mean, they were saying Gen X were going to be the worst degenerates ever, and they're actually less degenerate than Gen
X
Z.
Or Gen Z?
Gen X.
Oh, okay.
And they weren't the worst degenerates ever. They became much more socially conservative than people thought. Gen Z, on the other hand, and millennials especially, but millennials became a bunch of leftist scumbags. But Gen Z, moving the paradigm back a little bit, it's very possible that Generation Alpha is finally the first generation of actual alphas. Right? We're walking around. It's possible.
I mean, I just see the sexes going further and further apart.
Good.
And I see...
that's a good thing. I want that. I want the division.
I thought you wanted the families.
I do want the families, but the idea of the sexes being far apart is saying that we both have gender roles. And those gender roles, I'm not going to settle for less than that gender role, and neither are you. And it's like, so one's going to have to break, and it's going to be women first because they need men. Men don't need them.
Yeah, but what I see is it becoming more monetized. And you're already seeing that, with all the OnlyFans models that you've debated, right? Like, it's just going to become more transactional. Like, that's what I would predict for the future. I'm not saying I wish that, right? But if I had to, guess what's going to happen do you really think in 10 years it's going to be any more conservative?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
I don't think so.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have expected Trump to have gotten elected the second time either, right? Not on the heels of all the propaganda which had happened against him. But, the truth is like the pendulum, when it swings back right, is swinging much harder back right. So it used to be a little bit more like kind of even. It would go to the left, then it would come back right. Then it would go back to the left. It would be about even. Now it's ticking left, and then it swings harder. Then it goes back to the left, and then it swings harder to the right. So it's always swinging harder right. If we look at states are beginning the process of outlawing pornography, right? They're beginning the process of doing that. Many of them successfully have done it. And I think that trend is going to be moving more and more and more towards that until you get to a place. It's like eventually,
but they won't
ban.
They'll ban porn, but they won't ban OnlyFans.
No, some of them are moving towards banning OF.
I doubt it. Come on,
I think it'll happen.
Women are gonna die on the hill of
Yeah, but okay, but I will challenge this by saying this. A few years ago, we had this conversation on abortion, and you're like, man, that's never going to happen. Women will never allow for abortion to go.
Well, Roe versus Wade was overturned, but Plan B, don't you consider Plan B abortion?
Yeah, the thing is Plan B,
and that's way up. If you look, if you could say maybe abortions have gone down a little bit, but Plan Bs have gone up.
Yeah, but it was still the first step in the mitigation process. So it just starts. So all of this politics,
you really think
slow-moving machine.
You think number of kids is going to go up? You think marriage is really going to go up?
Not anytime soon.
Yeah.
Not anytime soon, but here's the thing. The trend is population's going to still increase a little bit, then it's going to plateau, and then the nosedive that we have in the years of pain that'll come from having an elderly population that doesn't have enough young people to care for them is going to be very brutal. But I do think that necessarily, just like we've seen, time and time again, we even saw it in Soviet Russia, but the propaganda has to start or you don't have a society.
Right. But I guess because my question would be what incentive do the men, if we have to go through 20 years of bullshit to get a wife, what incentive do the men have to not sleep around?
Well, I mean, in the current society, the only thing that would prevent them from that would be the idea of virtue and religiosity.
With the, I mean,
like from
Gen Z women,
like from a practical standpoint, if I'm looking at your view here from the practical standpoint, I would say nothing.
Yeah, that's my point. I'm not saying it's good or I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I think like they come to that conclusion because it's pragmatic.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. It's very difficult to make a normative claim like. Well, the normative claim, the moral claim, that's easy, right? But it's hard to make a more normalized claim, let's say, not normative, but normalized claim of, well, you just really shouldn't sleep with a bunch of chicks because it'll have a bad outcome. It's like, yeah, that's that's a harder line to toe. But I do think
it's like they look at the married guys who did like the Crowders of the world.
But I do think that you can make the great case, though, that it will ultimately have a worse outcome for you as you get older, that ultimately it'll have a worse outcome on you as an individual. It'll have a worse outcome on you as a man to not have children. It'll have a worse outcome for you ultimately. I think I can demonstrate that pretty easily. But I'm with you in the idea of like, trying to tell a bunch of 25-year-old men not to go fuck everything that moves when it's willing to have sex with it. That seems like a tall order. I get it. But I don't think for practical purposes, ultimately that the red pill is right on that. I think that the Christian right is more correct on that the outcomes for most men would be better ultimately served, and in the short term for society ultimately served by trying to remove promiscuity in these behaviors.
But if you take like society out of it and go on like an individual basis, like if the men that are loyal aren't really getting loyalty back and they're getting divorced, it's like what do they like? Are Muslim
women cheating?
What do they get? Like what do they get out of it?
I'll tell you. Yeah, in that case, you're right.
Yeah.
Right. But what about Muslim nations? Are there women cheating? The truth is they're not. Objectively, they're not. The punishments are so severe. Right. And the fact that you have to have chaperones even for women to walk around, they have to have male chaperones to walk them.
That's not all the Muslim countries, though.
I know it's not all of them, but even in the ones that are more progressive, they're not cheating as much. There's no way. So it's giving a demonstration of like, well, wait, if there is social outcomes, so there are ways to govern nations where there's social outcomes for these behaviors. It doesn't even need to be that extreme. That's you don't even need to make it where you have to wear a shufa and can't show your. We've had this before in this country. It wasn't that long ago.
Right. But like we're operating in the country we have now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just don't think there's any incentive with what we have now and not like what could be or what
Yeah,
I'm
but
not,
do you know what the problem with that argument is like Rome was full of a bunch of pedestry and homosexuality and all sorts of gross things, right? And it did reform eventually, right? There was some destruction which happened, but yeah, the virtues have to necessarily switch. So you go from Rome to like 1800s America. 1800s America looks real straight-laced in comparison to Rome, right? Like real straight-laced. So it's like this idea of, you can't put the shit back in the horse. It's like, yeah,
well,
you kind of can.
I'm not saying that you can't do it. I'm saying I wouldn't bet on it happening anytime soon.
Not anytime soon.
Yeah, when Gen Z women,
it's a gradual process.
And so we have to live in the laws that are governed now.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times what conservatives miss when they say like men shouldn't sleep around, I'm like, well, you have to give them something for it. And right now they're saying like, do this for nothing, and it's just not a good sell.
Well, I would say
do this in hopes that one day we have Afghan laws.
Look, I agree. Well,
don't
that's
have
not what I'm
sex till you're 30.
I'm not saying
not
that
you,
hopefully
right?
one day we have Afghan laws.
Yeah,
I'm just pointing out that obviously we can look at the social conditions of nations and the social conditions of societies to see where women are doing these things or not doing these things.
Right.
The Western nations is where they're mostly being done. That's the primary areas where sexual liberation is there, and this is the primary problem. So I would just say this. Just like it took 80 years for us to get here, right? It might take just as long to make the gradual transition the other direction. You know what I mean? But we have some things on our side.
But yeah, you're telling like in 80 years you'll get a wife.
No, I'm not saying in 80 years you get a wife.